Dad reached under his seat for a roll of toilet paper. "Take this," he said. 2 rows over, I squatted in the sand, holding a stick for snake protection. "Best not to shatter all your mama's illusions by telling her every detail," Dad said when I got back in the car. Withholding confidential information from my mother. How exciting. I was obsessed with spycraft. Dad helped me with my correspondence to the cereal companies of Battle Creek, Michigan, mailing away for Captain Quisp decoder rings, invisible ink, and secret compartment watches. Whatever I owned that was worth owning came from Battle Creek. Dad and I would sit at the kitchen table together in the evening and think of reasons why I was qualified to own the tools of espionage. I'd noticed the box of test tubes rattling on his back seat. I asked him why he needed test tubes with stoppers. He said Hood required him to test juice samples for sugars and acids. I could see the test tubes were unused. None of the seals were broken. That didn't seem right. "Are you going to get in trouble for not testing the juice?" I asked. He said he preferred what he called the old-fashioned taste test. I would watch him do it 100 times that summer. He stood by a tree with his pocket knife, cut a hole in the orange, and sucked the juice out. He held it in his mouth for a few seconds, calculating the juice into yields, pallets, and truckloads, then spat into the dirt. He had his answers. My father gave me one rule to follow. Don't touch the glove box. Understand? Whenever he left me alone in the car, I opened the glove box. It let out a puff of scent like dirty pennies. Inside was a pistol. I moved it aside to examine the rattlesnake kit. The small briefcase of death was at the back of the glove box. Military lettering stamped on the box said, "Mine Safety Appliances Company." That was just to throw off interested parties. The clasp of the rattlesnake kit popped open. Inside, the miniature surgical instruments were strapped down. Tourniquet, suction cup, and a lancet covered in creased white tissue. My father's territory was the citrus-growing region of Central Florida, known as the Ridge. It ran 100 miles from north to south, from up around Claremont, straight down to Lake Placid. It wasn't a large area, but in the 1960s, the Ridge had the heaviest concentration of citrus groves in the world. One botanical grid after another, dark green regiments of trees marching up and down the middle of the state. We lived at the bottom of the Ridge in a town called Sebring. In spring, when the orange blossoms opened, it was like God had knocked over a bottle of Ladies of Gardenia. The smell was so strong it burned into my hair and clothes, and the dog's fur. The blossoms heaved inside for 3 weeks straight. And just as they started to fade, the cooking houses started processing fruit for juice. For 10 hours a day, the cookhouses pumped caramelized smoke into the air that smelled of spun brown sugar. Once, we'd gone to Jacksonville, 3 hours north of the Ridge, a paper mill town on the St. Johns River. When that rotten egg breeze came rolling off the river, it left me gasping in the back seat, dazed by the realization that the world could stink. I was glad we weren't in paper. I was glad we were in oranges. If the history of Central Florida were charted out on a graph, it would start with primordial sludge, and then curve toward the Paleo Indians, the Calusa Indians, the Tocobaga Indians, Ponce de Leon, runaway slaves, snuff-dipping white settlers, the U.S. Army, Osceola, the great Seminole warrior, malaria, cattle, citrus, and a dull heat that left it undesirable for much besides oranges until the early 1960s, when Walt Disney took a plane ride over the vast emptiness, looked down, and said, "There." The interior of Central Florida was so desolate that my father kept a gallon of water and a box of saltines in his car. He said you could eat all the oranges you wanted, but good luck if you needed a flush toilet or a payphone. He also said...